everybody, and welcome again to another episode of the Multiverse. Mike, I am one of your hosts, Brian.
And I'm Taylor.
And we are here, unfortunately, without Jacob again today, but we are here to bring you all of the wonderful things in the world of nerddom. We're going to be talking specifically about comic book movies today and the MCU in particular. And this is one of my favorite movie franchises. I would say the number one for me is definitely going to be like Star Wars and Lord of the Rings are kind of like 1A and 1B. But then right behind that is the MCU. And, one of the things I really enjoy about the MCU, and it's something that I kind of wanted and talked about when I was in high school. I think a lot of us wanted this, but movies that tied into each other, like a TV show, right? And this is the first time we've really seen this have success. There are a lot of companies have tried doing this in the past to varying degrees of success, but the MCU is really historic in the way that they've been able to have this run of success for as long as they have. Say what you will about recent successes, but with as many successful movies they've had in their history so far, it's really unprecedented with how much success they've had. So what I thought we'd do today is dive into our top 5 favorites in the MCU thus far. And we're going to start at number 5. We're going to work our way up from there. So Taylor, would you kick us off with your number 5 pick?
My number 5 has got to be Avengers Infinity War. Mm-hmm. And I guess a good reason for that is I'm a sucker for a story where the good guys lose, and knowing that there's going to be a chance for vengeance in the end, from the good guys, or Avengers, they are the Avengers, so they need to have something to avenge. Mm-hmm. And Infinity War was like one of those, like, oh man, at the end, like you walked out of that theater almost feeling a little bit numb, like, how are they going to do this? Excited but numb, like, oh man, they're gone. So it was just a new kind of change of pace. So
yeah, to speak on that, I remember leaving the theater after watching that for the first time, and I kind of expected Thanos to win to some extent, but not to the extent that it actually happened in the movie. Yeah. And so that was kind of shocking and, kind of cool to see, because there's not a lot of movies that actually have the guts to actually take that route and kill half the main characters.
I mean, it's so cool. Like, just such a new, like I said, it's such a new thing to feel coming out of the theater. I'm like,
yeah,
oh wow, like almost disappointed. Like, we knew it was going to happen, but still, like, oh.
Right. Just sucks the life out of the audience
exactly.
In a good way.
Yeah. How about you? What's your number 5?
My number 5 is actually the original Guardians of the Galaxy.
Okay.
So Guardians of the Galaxy, for me, like, as a trilogy, 1, 2, and 3 is pretty close to being the best of the trilogies in the MCU. But my favorite of those movies is the first. And, from the soundtrack to the actors they chose to play the parts and the way that the characters all come together and have this great chemistry, I wouldn't say it's a perfect movie, but they do a lot of things right, and there really isn't anything wrong with that movie either. It's the first time that we really saw like Dave Bautista come on the scene. It's what gave him his break. He was kind of dabbling in Hollywood up to that point, but I remember when they cast Dave Bautista, I was thinking, he looks like Drax. That's a great casting from a physical perspective, but I didn't really think that he was capable of carrying that kind of a character in a big movie like that. But, now when anybody thinks of Drax, they think of Dave Bautista. The two go hand in hand. It was perfect casting. And, I can preach the good deeds of James Gunn all day long. This is where he got on a lot of people's radar, and kind of what got him into the DC gig that he's got now. But Guardians is one of those movies for me that's endlessly fun to go back and rewatch too.
Oh, for sure. And then you can't get wrong with that soundtrack. I mean,
yeah,
it's one of the best soundtracks of all, of all the movies. I mean, it's just straight out of the 80s, it's great.
Yes.
And the other thing is, that's one of the first few movies that it starts off, it's not about one character, it's about a team. And that opens up another thing, kind of paved way to them trying, like, the Eternals and trying to do the other team up movies that were just straight up just a team.
Yeah.
And and yeah, they highlight each character individually, but they show them, growing together as a team as well. The other thing was like I didn't know much about Guardians until the movie came out, and so I did my research after watching the movie. Like, and I was surprised at how recent the comics were created for Guardians, and and I was just like, wow, it's pretty cool how quickly they were able to adapt this to the MCU and bring them in and make them feel like they fit 100% into the whole universe.
Yeah, well, it was a group of characters like complete unknowns, like even to people that read comic books, it wasn't something that was on a lot of people's radars. And, the Guardians of the Galaxy had kind of existed previous to that, but this new incarnation of the team is something that was fairly recent. It had only been around for a few years before the movie actually came out. So, immediately put them, I think, on a lot of people's like top lists as far as like favorite MCU movies.
Yeah.
Let's move up to number 4. What do you have on your number 4 spot?
My number 4 is Captain America: Civil War.
Okay.
And, it is a glorified, Avengers movie.
Right, sure.
But, it brought in Civil War, which was one of my favorite storylines of Marvel Comics.
Yeah.
And, bringing that to real life. And it was the entry of Spider-Man into the MCU as well. That, I think, seeing that trailer where Spider-Man appears, I remember, I still get chills thinking about it. I'm getting chills right now even talking about it. When he pops into frame in that trailer, I about fell on the floor. I was so excited that he was going to be in the MCU with Captain America, Iron Man, all my favorite characters in this whole universe, and now Spider-Man, one of my favorite all-time characters, or superheroes. I was just like, I was just excited.
Yeah, something none of us thought we'd ever see.
Yeah, and then also seeing good guys versus good guys. That's a whole other thing it's not, another thing on top of, I'm like a sucker for good guys lose. The same thing. Like nobody wins in this movie, right. and that's that's the thing that kind of I guess gets me excited for how they're going to take the story. And they have to do something that is not normally done in movies in general. And again, like I said, nobody wins, and so who loses the most is basically what it comes down to, in the end.
Right.
And, and how it ties into the rest of the movies, and going back to Infinity War, how that kind of ties into, Cap's return and stuff, how he comes, so, in the silhouette of Cap as he throws, the thing in Infinity War, it just like, all that wouldn't work. It just shows like how everything had to be layered properly to get to there, and so Civil War is one of those movies that kind of laid that groundwork, even more groundwork for what was to come.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm going to say something just a little bit controversial here. Captain America: Civil War is not on my list, and I know it's a lot of people's like one of their top MCU movies. And we're going to get to a couple honorable mentions here in a minute too. I don't even have it as part of my honorable mentions, and it has nothing to do with the fact that I think it's good or not good, because I actually love the movie. I think it's a great movie, but I'm kind of ranking my list as far as like how much I remember enjoying it the first time I saw it, and then how often I go back to rewatch it. And it's as much as I do like it, I don't find myself rewatching it as much as some of the other ones that I have on my list.
That's totally fine. There's so many movies, when we're talking about this topic, pull it up. It's just like, whoa, I mean, that's an entire page in small font, I'm like, okay, right. This is to be tough to choose a top 5. But I totally get that.
So my number 4 actually is the OG Avengers. So this is a movie that I never thought I'd ever see in my life. Like even after, So I remember watching Iron Man, the first one, opening weekend in the theater, and I got home not having known the post-credit scenes were a thing.
Oh.
and I was reading about it online about this post-credit scene,
Uh-huh.
and I couldn't believe that I had missed it. So I went back the very next day just to watch the post-credit scene. Because, I mean, talking about, I mentioned it earlier, I've always wanted this interconnected universe in the movies, and now they're finally giving it to us. And somehow, even after I saw that, I didn't believe we were actually getting an Avengers movie. And to see all those characters together on screen for the first time, like nobody had ever done anything like that in movies before.
Right.
And so it's another vivid memory that I have from this. It was released worldwide a week before it was released in America. And I remember being super upset about that. And so I found a torrent for the movie and I downloaded the movie, and it sat on my hard drive, and I debated all week long, should I watch this or not? No, and I never watched it. I had it downloaded, and I'm like, no, I want to see this movie so bad, but I got to see it on the big screen in HD. I can't watch some crappy video from the audience. So awesome. I sat on that for a whole week contemplating whether or not I should do it, and I didn't. But I had so much fun watching that. I mean, I have memories of the audience cheering and all that good stuff. Like when Iron Man has that classic line, "We have a Hulk," and he comes in there and starts thrashing Loki around. And man, it's a near perfect theatrical experience.
Well, see, it's funny that you put that as number 4. I guess we can jump straight into my number 3 then, because that's Avengers, the original Avengers.
Nice.
And it has to be, the same, same thing. It's something that we never thought we were going to get in our lifetime. Something done so properly, well set up. They were all the post credit scenes. It kind of laid all of that work for post credit scenes to kind of prepare you for the next one, and the next one, get you excited and kind of give you hints on what's to come, and leading up to this movie, and I, even sitting there, I remember just being in awe that these characters are all together on screen, working together, fighting together, fighting with each other, all the arguments, the clashing personalities, and then them making it work because they have a similar goal. They're realizing that they can make this work. And the reveal of Bruce Banner being like, "Oh, my secret, I'm always angry," and then just punching the thing. You're like, oh man, the cheers for that thing, that was awesome. And then and of course the classic Loki getting thrown around. I mean, it's just puny god. All that stuff. The first time hearing Hulk speak, I think, was that one, that version of Hulk.
Yeah.
But coming down to, seeing when they start finally working together in this New York City is getting destroyed, and Cap jumps on that police car and starts trying to tell the cops where they need to go. And he's like, "Who are you?" And then he, takes down a few of the aliens and like, okay, okay. And like, okay, people are starting to get it, and again, just like the groundwork laid also for that, like how they were hiding also the Infinity Stones throughout these things. We didn't, unless you read the comics, you didn't know. Right. And you didn't know these things housed the Infinity Stones. I mean, there were 2 Infinity Stones right there in front of them. They had no idea, and being used completely improperly. And going back and watching them later, it's like, but Avengers, original Avengers is one of those movies I will always go back and watch again, just because it's just so much fun to watch.
It really is. Yeah. Near perfect movie. Let's move on to number. Well, that was your number 3.
That was my
right?
number 3. So you can go to your number 3.
My number 3, I cheated just a little bit because I said in Avengers Endgame and Infinity War.
Okay. I mean, because it's split 1 and 2. Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of view them as like one movie. And I know that the intention was for them to be made as separate films that could be watched on their own and told their own stories. But for me, they feel like one long movie. And, going back to your point of, you got that big cliffhanger at the end of Infinity War, but then it leads into such a cool story with Endgame, with the time heist. Like, I came up with like a million plot points in my head before I saw the movie, and that wasn't one of them. That wasn't, and they played it out so well too.
Yeah.
And the fact that it gets screwed up and they find a way to still make it work, I thought was a really clever way of playing that out. That's one of those movies that's probably the one that I go back and watch the most, just because the action sequences are so fun in that one. So like when I rewatch movies, I typically pick ones that have a lot of action in them, just because that's kind of what I'm drawn to. But it's got some of the best action set pieces in all of the MCU, and maybe the most iconic, couple of the most iconic scenes. So of course, on your left at the final battle, that's pretty awesome.
Uh-huh.
But I think my favorite MCU scene in any movie is in this one, and that's when you get the scene where Thanos is fighting Thor and like almost ready to kill him, and then the hammer comes flying, and you think that Thor's calling it, but then it's Steve Rogers, Captain America, and to see him wield Mjolnir on the battlefield, it was straight out of the comic books. Right. It's again, it's one of those things that I never expected to see, but it played out so well on film. It gives me chills when I watch it.
Yeah. I mean, and I'll say it, it's kind of, I guess, controversial. Endgame's not on my list, but I can't say it's not one of the best, MCU movies as well. Like it for those reasons, it got so many memorable scenes. The thing is, like, it almost feels like they still didn't have enough time to put as much stuff as they wanted to put in this movie,
Yeah, I could see that.
And there was just some stuff that, I guess didn't leave me feeling great. I guess, I don't know. There's just there's some stuff. And, knowing that they almost didn't do the I Am Iron Man, snap at the end, that I'm glad they reshot that part.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because knowing that they almost didn't add that, like, what? That would have been like, oh. But the Mjolnir scene has got to be my favorite part of that movie, and I guess this will lead into my number two. I did say that Spider-Man's one of my favorite, if not my favorite, superhero. Captain America is almost right on the same level as Spider-Man for me, and it's just because of who who Captain America is. I said in a previous episode about Superman, I love that kind of innocent farm boy superhero, right? That's why I love Spider-Man. That's why I love Captain America. Okay, he's kind of he's almost like so innocent. He's somewhat naive. On the way he approaches some things, but that's what makes him such an amazing superhero. Leading into my number two, Captain America, the First Avenger. And
oh, wow. Okay.
Exactly. And it's because you're bringing in, and you kind of catch a theme with mine. It's all about the groundwork that was laid, right? This is the first, scene of the Tesseract, right? We see the first Infinity Stone brought in here. And we're and being used to create stuff. They're using the energy incorrectly, but they're using it. And we also got to see, how in fighting Red Skull. I think Red Skull was played amazingly in that movie.
Yes,
and just the way he fought things, the way he really didn't want to use guns. He fought for his own morals, and he never let up on his morals, and still did what he was the first Avenger, and back in the earlier war, and just fighting for good, just for straight up for good, and bringing Captain America. I don't know if I think I watched that with you guys. When it first came out.
You maybe did, yeah.
I rush ordered a Captain America shield belt buckle just for the movie, just so I could wear it to the movie. I paid way too much for that belt buckle, but I don't care. I had it. I still have it in my closet, and I love that thing. And It's just because I love Captain America that much. And, you know, yeah. So.
Well, that was your number 2?
That's my number 2, yeah.
Well, let's stick on the theme of Captain America.
All right.
My number 2 MCU film is Captain America and the Winter Soldier.
Okay.
And I think for a long time, that was my number 1 movie. And it just narrowly gets beaten out by something we'll talk about here in a minute. But I don't know what I was expecting when I went to see this movie, because I liked the first Avenger, the Captain America first Avenger, but I wouldn't call that one of my favorites. And so I don't know what I was expecting going into watching Winter Soldier, but that movie was nothing like I thought it would be, in all the best ways possible. I mean, it was a 70s espionage film, and the twist of SHIELD being Hydra this entire time, like it just smacks you in the face. Like you don't see it coming at all. And then the entire movie just flips itself on its head at that point. And it was just, it's such a cool reveal. And the fact that they were able to tie Bucky as a Winter Soldier into that so well. And, you know, the seeds are planted in there too for a lot of other stuff that comes later in the MCU. But this is one of those movies that is, I keep using the term near perfect. There's not a thing I would change in this movie because, I mean, everything that they do in there is believable. Like the twist is really believable. You don't have to stretch to get to the point where that happens. You know, you can see how this. I mean, they take a lot of real world inspiration in the way that they're trying to set all this up with the way that they want to control people and you know, take down the threats before they become threats. And you know, again, going back to the action, a lot of fun action set pieces on that.
That movie does have one of my more favorite scenes of Captain America, where he grabs the helicopter with one arm, and he grabs the railing with the other, and he pulls it back. You know, I make a joke about my son. Captain America is our dishwasher with the towel rack that's at level. He's this tiny
Nice.
little thing, but he's strong enough to pull him, but he's not heavy enough to pull it down. You know, that scene is almost iconic to that movie. I agree. That's a great movie. It didn't make my list just because there's so many movies.
There are
that, you know, there's so many good MCU movies, especially the earlier ones. You know,
before we get to our number ones, do we want to talk about some honorable mentions?
Sure. One of my honorable mentions has got to be Spider-Man: No Way Home. Again,
me too, actually.
Bringing bringing Spider-Man into the MCU and you know, he's almost, you know, feels like a kid trying to, you know, with these superpowers, just trying to make his way in this universe, you know, and he's fighting, you know, fighting through all this, and with the No Way Home part, you know, it comes down to, you know, another guy who ends up losing, and it's that same feel that I kind of like out of these movies. You know, that, you know, the good guy doesn't always win, especially Spider-Man. Spider-Man has got one of the more tragic stories of all the superheroes. You know, he's not rich, he's not, you know, he's not well known. Peter Parker is not like a famous person really at all.
Right.
And, you know, he by the end of the movie, you know, his acceptance of himself is so, you know, he knows he had to do this, and he kind of just is accepted it, and you know, he's going to deal with it how he needs to. You know, he's not going to the college he wanted to go to, obviously, because nobody knows who he is now.
Yeah.
And, you know, and they played it in such a way that, you know, I mean, you're almost crying, you know, watching Doctor Strange just be like, but all the people who love you, we're going to not know who you are. We're not going to know who you are, you know, including himself, you know, saying, you know, he's grown to love this kid, and, you know, and he doesn't want to forget him. And, you know, Peter knows that he has to do it. So,
yeah. Now, something I loved about that movie, the traditional tale of how Peter Parker becomes Spider-Man
Mm-hmm.
is when Uncle Ben dies. And they took that idea and changed it in a way that I don't think any of us saw coming, because it wasn't specifically Uncle Ben that turns him into who he really is. It's the fact that he loses a loved one.
Right.
And because Uncle Ben doesn't exist in this universe, or, I don't know if they ever mentioned if he ever did, but
they never said anything about Uncle Ben. Yeah.
Yeah. But the fact that they flipped it and turned it into Aunt May dying,
Right.
for him to become the Spider-Man that we all know and love.
Right.
It gives me a lot of excitement for the next movie that's coming out. Did you have any other honorable mentions?
I had to say Black Panther.
The original?
The first one, yeah.
Yeah.
Just an awesome movie. Again, come down to the soundtrack. The soundtrack is one of the coolest soundtracks of
true. Yeah.
all the movies, right up there with Guardians. I could listen to that whole soundtrack and just I think I did actually when it first came out. I was like, that's nice. This is cool. But Black Panther in general, the whole story of Wakanda, is such a cool story, because I just started watching Eyes of Wakanda, which great show if you haven't started watching it yet.
Yeah, I haven't seen it.
Yeah, watch it for sure.
Okay.
But the Black Panther in general, I didn't know much about his story before the movie came out, and so learning more about that and how it goes, and the whole story of Wakanda, and how they are almost playing a fast one on the world, acting like they're a third world country when actually they're like the most advanced country in the entire entire world. And what they're able to do and hide is such a neat story.
Yeah, no, it was fun. It was definitely one of those that was better than my expectations had it. My other honorable mention is one that a lot of people have as one of their bottom MCU movies. Like the feedback that I hear, this is like one of the movies that people hate most in the MCU.
Yeah.
But it nearly made my top 5 list, and that's Thor: Love and Thunder.
Okay, thank God.
What did you think I was going to say?
We'll get there.
Okay. So Thor: Love and Thunder for me, like Taika Waititi, I think is a comedic genius. Yes. I really vibe with the kind of comedy that he does. And I like that he leans into the silly. A lot of people say that's what ruined the movie, but that was after Endgame. I've seen every MCU movie in theaters, but after Endgame, I had stopped watching multiple viewings of them. Thor: Love and Thunder was the first one that I went back and watched a second time in the theaters. And then right when it came out on video, like I was ordering it on demand before it was on Disney Plus, because I loved it that much. Like the comedy stuck for me. The action was fun. I love the musical montage at the beginning with Guns N' Roses.
Had to figure out some way to do it.
Music plays a big part in movies for me. But seeing Jane come back and then playing into that whole comic arc of her dying from cancer and trying to use the power of Thor to fight while this thing is killing her. It was,
which is it's comic really accurate, right?
Yeah, it really is. It is.
Okay.
So it was a deep cut that I didn't expect to see in the film, and I thought it played out pretty nicely. I mean, I completely understand why a lot of people don't like it, but film is subjective. So
I think the movie was written very well. They had to find a way to kind of get rid of Natalie Portman's character. Because she's too high profile of an actress and dealing with a lot of other projects to really keep appearing, every now and then in these movies.
Right.
So they kind of just didn't have her. and so it didn't really work out. People were like, where's Jane? Where's Jane? Where's Jane? Okay, we have to kill her off somehow. Oh wait, there's female Thor. Yeah, we can make this work, Yeah. And they played off in a great way.
I mean, I do think they kind of dropped the ball with Gore as the villain, because he's such a cool character in the comics, and they got, one of the best actors that's working right now, Christian Bale. But they didn't do so much with him in the movie. But
Yeah, he was kind of disappointing. I agree with you there, but I wish they did more with him.
Real quick, before we actually hit on our number one film, let's just do a real short touch on maybe your top one or two bottoms of the MCU.
I'd say I'll start from number 2. Bottom is going to be Shang-Chi, and
wow, really?
Yeah, and so it's a good movie by itself. It doesn't feel like an MCU movie to me. It just doesn't. I don't. And so you're talking about MCU top, our MCU top 5 and our MCU bottom 2. I understand the story. I understand about it, but it doesn't feel like an MCU movie to me. It feels like it's a good story by itself, and I just kind of was confused watching it, and it's not one I have ever even thought about watching again.
That one very nearly was on my honorable mentions list. I think it's top tier MCU.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, maybe we can talk about this a little bit more later, but
okay.
Yeah. Maybe this is a discussion for a future video.
There we go. Yeah. What about you? What's your...
For me, and this one might be controversial too, is Iron Man 3. I know a lot of people like Iron Man 3. For me,
I agree with you on that one. That's probably the bottom of the 3.
Pretty boring to me overall. Yeah. I didn't care for the whole story arc with I don't even remember half the stuff that was going on in that movie. But I don't know.
The Mandarin.
The Mandarin, that's right. Thank you. I couldn't remember the name.
Yeah.
I don't know. Let's not talk about Iron Man 3. I did have one more, and I shouldn't say maybe. It's my least favorite MCU movie. It's Wakanda Forever.
Okay.
I like Namor,
mm-hmm.
and everything else in that movie can go away. I think that they tried to honor Chadwick Boseman's legacy by not recasting Black Panther, and they didn't have a movie because of that.
Right.
There is no Black Panther without the character of T'Challa.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can understand why they would have wanted to honor his legacy, but just don't make another movie, because that movie was a total train wreck.
Yeah,
Shuri should not have been the Black Panther. I know she was in the comics, but the way she's presented in the MCU, it makes no logical sense for her to take on that title.
Mm-hmm.
So
I don't know. Again, I don't know much about the Black Panther story enough about Shuri to know what they could have done. And like you said, it almost sounds like they should have just not touched it,
mm-hmm.
Left it as it was, or tried to find a different way to write out T'Challa's character.
Yeah.
If they didn't want to recast him. My bottom MCU movie that I've ever seen has got to be Eternals.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't understand the movie. I was even more confused watching that movie than Shang-Chi, and then all of a sudden a Celestial was birthed out of the earth somehow, and I'm like,
mm-hmm.
what? Where'd he come from?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, he's in the earth the whole time, and maybe they'll use that later, but they used it a little bit in
Brave New World.
Brave New World. Yeah, thank you.
We don't talk about that one either.
It's down there. And I just feel like it was bad writing. But so Eternals, I mean, they just, I don't get it. I don't get the whole story. I don't get, I mean, I guess I get it. I just don't get why they had to do it in movie form. It just,
they were really trying to do something different.
Yeah,
and I think for some people that was a good thing, but for what we had been conditioned for in the MCU, it was so big of a swing that it just, I don't know, it was odd. I mean, there's elements of the movie. Fast. Yeah. There's elements of the movie that I enjoy, but I definitely can see why you place it so low.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about happier topics.
Okay. Number 1.
Number 1.
5.
What do you got? Your number 1 MCU movie.
And I couldn't do this list without having Iron Man 1. And
okay.
and because it's the movie that started it all. This movie. Like I said, my list is all about what laid the groundwork. And for me personally, what my top 5 is gotta have these movies in them because they laid such great groundwork for what was to come.
Mm-hmm.
And Iron Man has some of the more memorable lines, especially with Tony Stark built this in a cave. In a cave with a box of scraps. I quote that so many times, especially watching the Ironheart show, and bagging on that movie a little bit, or that show a little bit, no, you're no Tony Stark, and and the whole, because so many superhero movies are like, oh, I gotta hide my identity, right? In the end of the movie, I am Iron Man, okay, this is totally a different universe here.
Mm-hmm.
We're just jumping right in, and
don't
so
forget
many
the soundtrack.
Oh yeah, soundtrack for sure.
AC/DC,
yes.
yeah.
AC/DC, yep. And you get to see a superhero who has questionable values, in the beginning, and he slowly, you kind of like, okay, should this guy even be a superhero right now? But obviously he cares because he doesn't want to see his name on things that are killing kids, and killing third world countries, and that's where he starts to, okay, I need to change. I need to do something different.
Yeah,
and it's cool the transformation of Tony Stark through that movie, and through the entire Infinity Stone or whatever the whole
Infinity
Saga is just you start off from there to the end of Endgame. The whole journey of Tony Stark was just incredible, but you had to start somewhere. And I feel like that's why that movie has to be my number 1.
Yeah, that's a good choice for number 1. My number 1 goes to my favorite MCU character, and that's Thor. But the movie specifically is Thor Ragnarok.
Okay.
That movie to me is endlessly fun. Like if I'm going to go back and watch any MCU movie over and over again, it's that one. I've seen it more than any of the other movies. And, I mentioned it just a second ago. Thor is my favorite character, and you get such a fun journey with him, realizing how much he needs his brother in that one.
Right.
And, you see Thor and Loki actually start to really bond in that movie. But then the fact that they played off of a little bit of Planet Hulk with this too, which is one of my favorite comic series. Seeing Hulk in the arena was a lot of fun. And that gladiator fight scene between Thor and Hulk, and the fact that Hulk is this big celebrity on the planet, and we get introduced to Jeff Goldblum's Grandmaster, which is such a fun character. But I think this was the last time that we actually got to see Hulk as we really liked him in the MCU.
Right.
I don't know how big of a fan you are, the Professor Hulk, but I think they've kind of ruined him since they've done that.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't a huge fan of Professor Hulk, but they again they were trying to do something new, like you said, and I feel like that wasn't too big of a change. They just needed more ways to explain it beforehand. They were just kind of like, oh, and then he's Professor Hulk, So I get that. Seeing Hulk, and he's I like that because I talked about in Avengers 1 hearing Hulk speak for the first time on screen, and you see a lot of speaking from Hulk, that version of Hulk during that, and the whole argument he has with Thor, smallest Avenger, I just watched that whole scene again. I had to look it up. But it would, that movie, because that was when Taika took over Thor.
Yeah,
right?
that was his first.
That was
movie
his first
in the MCU.
Was it his first one in the MCU?
Yes.
Okay, and that kind of so that makes sense. So you got to see the shift of a very serious Thor to a Thor who has been changed by Earth and the Earth heroes and his new friends. He's starting to kind of come out of his shell and be kind of a goofier, joking around, and it's a cool version of Thor. Who's starting to grow, and
I've liked Thor before that movie, but this is the movie that made him my favorite MCU character.
Okay.
Yeah. And I didn't even mention yet, Hela as the villain.
Oh yeah.
The MCU is kind of famous for having villains that are just kind of there. They just exist.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But I think Hela is top tier as far as MCU villains go. I mean, again, the MCU has a problem even with the good villains of just killing them off in that movie, which, you figure she's not going to stick around very long because she's too powerful. But, the way that they really play into like Norse mythology, like I'm pretty fascinated with Norse mythology and the way that they played off Ragnarok and having Surtur into the movie. And, they fulfilled the prophecy of Ragnarok and then use that to jump forward into the next phase of the MCU. And I thought that was pretty fun and a unique way for them to play off that.
And showing that even, the whole thing was like Thor was not strong enough to kill Hela.
Right.
And he realized that, and he knew that. And so he's like, well, Surtur is.
Yep.
And so he's like, I'll just use that guy. And that was kind of a cool way to just play that off as well. If they were going to kill her, do it correctly. Don't give Thor this massive power up that's going to kill the final villain. That makes no sense. Let's give somebody who is strong enough a chance to do it. So,
and I love that quick little scene where Hulk wants to take on Surtur.
Oh yeah. Hulk, no, we need him. No. Yeah.
So, yeah. All right. Well, just do a quick recap on your top 5.
Avengers Infinity War, Avengers 1, Captain America Civil War, Captain America First Avenger, Iron Man.
Yeah, and then my top 5, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1, Avengers, and then a tie between Infinity War and Endgame, Captain America Winter Soldier, and Thor Ragnarok. So our lists were kind of similar with a couple of those, but it's interesting to see your perspective on that. Our top couple movies were very different from each other, but I don't
for
think
good reasons.
For good reasons, yeah, for sure.
Reasons.
There's very few bad movies in the MCU. So there's a lot of good stuff to choose from. But the important question that we have: what do you guys at home think? Let us know what you thought of our selections and what your top 5 MCU movies are. If you're watching on YouTube, leave that in the comment section down below. We appreciate a thumbs up and a share and a subscribe and all that good YouTube stuff. If you're watching or listening rather on your favorite podcast apps, we do appreciate a 5-star review. Tell your friends about it. And join us next time. We'll be talking about some other nerdy topics here soon. And until next time, we're just going to sign off and say thanks again for hanging around in the multiverse.
We'll see you.